Do you want it the width 10 and height 10? Or
yes. Yeah, I want you guys to start off with just go to File, New, and this will come up for those of you who haven't used Illustrator. Okay. Are you guys still initializing? It's still opening? Okay. Well, I'll just kind of explain a few things, and you guys should get it here. So anyway, when you go to start a new Illustrator file, you'll have a few settings here, and I don't care necessarily for something like diagramming, whether or not you set it up to pixels or inches or anything like that. It's just the end product needs to be right. So whether or not you do your Illustrator diagram in Illustrator and then bring it into Photoshop, which you might be more used to, or if you do everything in Illustrator and then bring your sketches into the Illustrator environment, it's all up to you. So for me, what I'm going to do is set this up in Illustrator. Okay, and I'm just going to bring my images directly into Illustrator. So we said in our final description, it said that you need it to be an 8.5 by 11, either landscape or portrait format. It really depends what kind of building you're thinking of doing. My building, because I'm doing transportation and population things, I think it's going to be more horizontal, right, in orientation. So I'm going to start off with a horizontal format. So my width will be 11 and my height will be 8.5. And then hit OK. Okay. Now, one of the things you could do is set up both of your pages right here in Illustrator. I tend to like doing that. So if you need to do both, all you need to do is go into Document Setup and then Edit Artboards. And you can take this artboard, and if you hold Alt, you can just drag this over and line it up so that it snaps to the edge. And that way, when you grab your zoom tool and you zoom out, you've got your two pages right next to one another.
wait, what the? Document setup?
Yeah. Go to Document Setup and click on Edit Artboards, and then you can just Alt-click and drag this to wherever you need it. Okay? You can't have another tool selected. You have to just have your selection tool up, and that's how you can click on Document Setup. Like if I select some, yeah, or Command active, I mean. Okay? Sure. Okay, so next up, we want to set this thing up properly. So we're going to need to make sure that we set our margins and kind of block out where our certain images are going to be. So what are the requirements for our sketch page again? Do you guys remember? You're going to have 1 or 2 main sketches or diagrams and diagrams, definitely the diagram at least. And then you're going to have 6 thumbnail sketches at a minimum. Okay? So the way I'm going to probably establish this here is I'm going to use my rulers, of course. So go to View, Rulers, and Show Rulers, or just hit Control-R. Actually, I think you can right-click and do it here as well. Hide rulers, right-click, show rulers. Okay. Yeah, that's easier. So then one of the things you need to do here is establish what kind of margin you're going to work with. I think I'm going to try to go, for my diagrams, I'm going to go a little bit larger and pull it in a 1/2 inch rather than something small or low profile like a 1/4 inch. So you just click and drag on click on the ruler and drag it out, and it'll create the margin. Hold Shift, and it'll snap to that midpoint. Like it'll snap to each of the ruler points. Like see how it's kind of jumping down? Versus this, which could fall anywhere. Okay. So the other thing that you need to be aware of with the rulers here in Illustrator is that the rulers are objects in Illustrator. It's not the case in Photoshop. In Photoshop, they just kind of live as this thing. You can grab it and delete it and sort of pull it off screen to delete it. But here in Illustrator, you can I might have them locked. Yeah, they're locked. If you can't select it, turn this off, and then you can just pull your window across it, and it selects like that. So that's how you can delete these. So what I'd like you to do is get your 1/2" margin set up, and that's 8 inches for the 1/2 inch there. And then I think I'm going to delimit. So if you think about this, it's an 11-inch page, right? 5.5 inches to the center line. But since I have 1/2 inch margins on the side of the page, I'm also going to use a 1/2 inch space in the center of the page. So I'm going to move this over 1/4 inch here, and another one over 1/4 inch there. So now I have these two realms or sides of the page, and I'm going to put my main sketch here on the left, and then I'm going to put all of my thumbnail images here on the right, or my main diagram, right? And if for some reason I'm going to have, I don't think I am right now, but I would have, that's my midpoint there. I could go 1/4 inch up there and 1/4 inch down there. And if I'm going to have like a partee diagram and then an illustrative sketch, I would do those here, like that. What questions do you have?
Will you suggest using InDesign?
Not necessarily. If you want to use InDesign, you can. It's just, I think for a simple 2-page spread, it's easier in Illustrator. Does that make any sense?
It does.
Yeah, it's just whatever you're more comfortable with. You can do it in Photoshop too. Yeah.
What key did you press to make it exactly midpoint?
Shift. Hold Shift. Okay, so first things first, I think I want to create my diagram. And you see it up here. It's really, really simple. But I want to just say one thing about Illustrator is that it's a real pain in the butt to get it to do actual semicircular elements. It does circles fine, but you have to jump through, you know, flaming hoops to be able to get it to do a partial circle like I'm doing there. So what I'm going to do, since I already have Rhino open, the fastest path forward to an actual circular, semicircular element is to just draw it in Rhino and then drop it into Illustrator. So that's what I'm going to do. It's really weird that they don't have that. So, all right, let's see. Get rid of this.
Can I draw it in AutoCAD?
Yeah, AutoCAD works fine too. So do you guys need a moment?
Yeah.
You need me to pause? Okay, pause. All right, so next step. The diagram itself, right? So we were jumping into Rhino, so this is like mega fast, right? I'm just going to start drawing this diagram. I'm going to draw a line. Doesn't really matter if it's perfect or, you know, super long or anything like that. Then I'm going to draw another line across the midpoint. And I think on this one, I actually am going to make sure that the midpoint, oh, that actually is just about exactly halfway across. Wow. All right. And then at the same time, I need to do the semicircular elements. So in order to do that, I'm just going to draw a circle, go from there to here, and then start pulling this thing off like that. Mirror it. Oh, let me cut it first and then I'll mirror it. Probably more like that. Trim. And then mirror. Okay. Yeah, it is kind of like a basketball, I suppose. So anyway, yeah, that is my diagram, or that's the line work of my diagram. But I'm just going to export this to a DWG or Illustrator file. I'll just do DWG. I'm going to call this a dump file. Because it's not, so the reason I called that dump is because it's not a file that I really need to keep for anything because it's so simple. So I'm just going to delete it later. But back in Illustrator, I go to File, Place, and I just need to find that thing now. So, okay, Grenling, dump, and dump DWG. Place it, scale to fit, good to go. Now my diagram is in here, and it is actually semicircular. Size it to fit. All right. Are you ready for me to make it what it needs to be? It didn't disappear. It's just white. So, yeah, the stroke is white currently, so I'll just change that to black. So here's the deal. My diagram, I want it to look a certain way. So this element, I can just change it to a really, really thick line. 60 point is too much. 40 is probably appropriate, but I want to change the end condition so it's not rounded. So I go into the stroke panel, and I change this to a square end. Yeah, that's a nifty one, I think. And then likewise, for these elements, I did them as dashes to show movement. So I'm going to make them a little bit thicker. That's probably too thick. Still too thick. 4 is probably appropriate. I also want those to have hard edges. Check off dashed line, and then you can just start playing with what the dashes actually are. So this one, I probably want it to be really long for the actual dash, and then even longer for the gap. Something like that.
I'm still stuck on the placement of the Rhino file into Illustrator.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. I mean, all you have to do is just go to File, Place, grab your DWG, and then place it, and hit OK. And then it's in. Yeah. Okay, so what questions do you have? Yes?
Okay, so I don't know if someone's already asked you this or whatever, but what's the difference between what this place does instead of the other one where file opening?
Where you open and copy and paste it in?
Yeah.
Place will not place with layers. So this one, it didn't matter if I took the layers in. But the other few that we've done, it really did matter. So you don't need, that's why I did place, is because I don't have layers. So, yeah. Another thing I think I want to do here is just kind of fix this up a little bit. I think that bar is a little too long. And I probably want to make this one a gray color. Soften it up a little bit. All right, so what do you think? You guys think you could accomplish this for your diagram? Something like that? All right.